Look at a fertilizer bag and you see those three numbers. The first number of the three is always going to be nitrogen. I forget the other two. I forget the order.
Yeah, phosphorus.
I know it's phosphorus and potassium, but I forget the order.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So to me, I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'll figure it out later.
Right.
But it says on the bag too. It'll say like below it, but it says the exact percentage of nitrogen.
That's per weight? So when we were putting down 2100, it's 21% of the weight of that bag.
So if it was
nitrogen,
20-pound bag, 21% of it is nitrogen. So that's a heavy dose of nitrogen.
Phosphorus is the middle number, and there's two things with that as far as my experience with it. One is that's what you put down, for example, on your bulbs. You know, the tulips and the daffodils. Bone meal is phosphorus. So that's going to help you do that so that it helps increase the size of flower the next year. So it really plays a role in the flowering and the fruiting portion of the plant or tree. So when you have a fruit tree, what do you want to do? You want to put phosphorus on it. It's going to help your end result, your yield. Potassium, it helps with the root growth, strengthen the root growth, and then also helps with the circulatory system. Yeah, the uptake. Potassium helps with the uptake of water and nutrients and everything else from the root system, and then it also helps relocate that or translocate that out to the branches, the leaves, all of the other portions of that plant. So they're both very, very important, very essential, but they don't need to be in massive quantities. Not nearly like the nitrogen does.
Yeah, you would need more like for the root growth, for the bulbs and things. That's what you'd want to hit your flower beds with more. So that's why it's a little different of a formulation, because that you're not growing. You want deep roots, but you're not growing flowers in your lawn. You're not promoting that with your lawn, so because you always cut it off. So yeah, good information.
Yeah, and I believe also for some reason using fertilizer in the greenhouse, I do know that the middle number, the phosphorus, if that number is relatively high, it promotes stretch, elongation, and I don't know who wants elongation pretty much anywhere, grass and or their geraniums, because that just creates a weaker plant overall, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say you had we're talking about turf grass, and you have a really high middle number, that phosphorus. It's going to stretch that blade really, really tall and simply just make it weaker. When the wind blows, when people walk on it and play football, whatever, it's going to make it bend more easily and just be a weaker plant. Anyway, that's...
So what about like, I know one of the problems with our soils is the iron. So we have a lot of iron in our soils. They're just not able to be plant uptaked.
Yeah, they're not able to be taken up by the plant because of pH. Yeah, so there's a lot of iron, but because in Utah our pH levels are high, and iron is really only available at a certain pH, like lower than 7, and probably even more like 6.5, a pH of 6.5. Then the plants can uptake that and stay nice and green. The beautiful thing about it is that turf grass is not nearly as affected by that iron need as a lot of other plants.
Good.
So yeah, grass is a good alternative.
So because I saw like IFA advertising or something like advertising these seasonal fertilizing programs or whatever, where some of them had iron in it. Like, if our grasses don't really need it, then why are they because they're adding it to the fertilizer.
Yeah, so grass and all plants need iron,
Just not as much.
just not as much. Yeah, they're not as susceptible to chlorosis as some other plants, and so really it's nitrogen. If you want that nice deep green, you want to look at the nitrogen percentage. And I mean, even on top of that, a manufacturer could say, "Hey, we added iron to this fertilizer," but that will not change the uptake level in that plant unless the pH is dropped. And you can't drop the pH unless you acidify it. And so it's like this really complex.
We're kind of behind the eight ball with acidification in Utah. It's that's just one of those things that a lot of our plants just can't overcome. And we can't change the soil. I mean,
can't change the soil. One product that they have come out with is called chelated iron. It costs a lot of money, but it's a molecule. It's kind of complicated, but it's a molecule that the plant can uptake without needing the pH to be low. And so you're paying a lot of money to have your plants be able to use that iron. And it's a good idea to use that chelated iron on just the handful of varieties of plants and trees that are lacking in iron uptake. And so it's a rare occasion that I would say spend the money on that.
Right. So if you had like a prized oak tree or something, a magnolia, something that needs, and it's holding on, maybe like your hydrangeas, hook up your hydrangeas with a little bit of iron chelate. So like my mom had issue with something. I think it was just his mount. She was just watering too much. I always bring up my mom. But we had some chlorotic shrubs. I think it was a Rose of Sharon. But I think there was two problems. One, it needed to be pruned. And two, it was getting watered too much. And so Rose of Sharon doesn't typically have chlorotic issues in Utah. And I think it was just because she was watering too much. So like we were able to turn the water down, and it's taken off, and it's done better in recent years. And I pruned it pretty hard, and it flowered, and it had never flowered. She had it for 3 or 4 years, and it had never flowered. Whoa. And I was just like, something's wrong with that, And she's like, oh, the leaves are yellowing and stuff, and chlorotic. And she's like, the guy said it was, iron chelates or whatever. And I was like, let's do a little work on that thing and see if we can get it to flower. So the last couple of years it's flowered, and she's never added iron to it or anything.
Yeah.
But that's just one example. So it might not always be the soil. You might just have bad practices of why it's not looking as healthy as it should.
Yep.
But anyway. Good.
Yeah, that's great. A couple of things I wanted to mention real quick is that grass, so there's sun varieties. There's varieties that need more sun, and there's varieties that need less sun to thrive, right? But all in all, grass needs a fair amount of sunlight to succeed, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say between 4 and 8 hours per day. The couple of few varieties, I believe, that are in the shade category. So if you have shady spots under trees or whatever, Chewing's fescue, red fescue, and bent grass is the shade varieties. The sun varieties, you're looking at perennial ryegrass, annual ryegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, and annual bluegrass. I'm not sure where zoysia grass falls under. I believe it's a sun variety that. But these are all different varieties that you can add and top dress to your existing and current grass if you're not happy with how nice and thick and beautifully green and sturdy it is.
Right. Well, like my brother in California, he doesn't have Kentucky bluegrass. I think he had a red fescue or a type of fescue that is more of a, I was guessing with the fescue, more of a warm season grass.
Tall fescue.
Yeah, tall fescue.
Yep.
Yeah, tall fescue.
Yeah.
So he thought it was what people can mislabel it as a type of crabgrass because it's a fat, thick, heavy. And that's his lawn. That is his lawn. Is that tall fescue, and he wanted to like get rid of it. I'm like, dude, this is your lawn. This is what can grow here. This is what's more water tolerant, and you're a lot warmer than you were in Utah. Kentucky bluegrass is gonna die. But it's that feel on your feet, like when you're out there. Kentucky bluegrass is like just nice to walk on. It's the right amount of thickness. Like there's thin fescue that's just not. It's just too dang thin. Mm-hmm. And then you got the tall fescue that's too fat and pokey. Yeah. And I mean, how often are you walking barefoot in your lawn? Never. I don't. I never ever.
Very rarely.
Right. So it's kind of like, what are you trying to pull off here? You know, like for that one small time, you want to deal with it the entire year. So you got to kind of, think about that. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of your lawn?
Yeah.
You don't need a football field in your yard.
No. But you know what I kind of get, now that you bring that up, like what's the purpose? It's visually pleasing to me to see green.
Yeah.
That's kind of the sign of life. But uniformity too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my ornamental grasses, and I've got a bunch of different ones. But there's something about just this uniformity that kind of makes you feel like, as long as it's kept up well and maintained well, it just kind of is a sign of order, I guess. And not everybody wants that in their life, but if there's just like this little strip of lawn that's tidy and looks good, it's almost like we're growing this for our eyes, right?
Totally.
Like, what a trip. Oh,
I mean,
my gosh.
people appreciate, a freshly cut lawn that's, been edged and trimmed and just immaculate looking is beautiful. I mean, that's why everyone has it. Well, most everybody.
Yeah.
But it's like, from a designer looking at it, we use the lawn, the nice flat area, as almost a dual purpose okay, here's your activity space. And then the planting beds contrast it. So you even get more of a manicured feel when you have it next to these wild shrubby, this upright variety of ornamental grass or whatever. And it gives you that contrast of color, feel, texture, and then you have kind of the wildness next to this trimmed. It relaxes your eyes. You don't need to it's not busy. It's not, it adds an element to rest your eyes on. It's a cool color. It's just, it works well as that element in a design.
Yeah. Well, and some people may say, well, it's a monocrop. There's no diversity with it, but most turf grass blends are upwards of 10 different types of grass seed and grass grown in there, so that when you do have a little bit more of a shady spot, the one that is more adventitious and opportunistic will grow there in a much greater percentile.
Totally. So if you're seeding your area, you need to mix it up. You need to have multiple varieties, multiple strains of grass mixed in. And when you overseed too, you can do a different kind. You could tell when someone doesn't do it, where it's like, say a spot of your lawn died or whatever, and you're out there roundupping, and you got these little spots of dead, and you're like, oh, what do I do? Put green, put seed in it, and you take a kind of seed. and you stick it in there and you think, oh yeah, that's bluegrass, but then it was maybe a finer or